Okay, so Sonic Frontiers played a bit of it at EGX. So did Connor. You didn't, but you did watch Connor and have to coach him through some of that.
I've watched a fair amount of it. To be fair, I've sort of been, I'm a big old school Sonic fan.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so I've sort of watched it with bemusement from afar, knowing I'm going to play it. And I think the constant refrain has been that it might look a bit crap in places, and it might not necessarily screenshot or trailer very well.
Yes.
But actually, when people sit down and play it, they seem to universally be quite impressed with it.
Yeah. See, this is it. I think it's a very difficult game to demo and, as you say, to trailer, to screenshot. I think it's a very difficult game to showcase. At the EGX demo, which I think is also the Gamescom demo, you were on this island called Kronos Island. Mm-hmm. And I swear it's a Sonic open world environment that has the same color palette and general vibe as Death Stranding, which I sort of, it's not the vibe you would initially associate with Sonic, right?
Yeah, it's like, I think the Zelda inspiration is clear.
Yeah, 100%.
And for whatever reason, I think so they made the first zone to almost have that open world Breath of the Wild sort of feel.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's when you see those, what are they called, hyperspace levels, superspace levels, something like that, the ones that are like more traditional Sonic stages, you realize that the game actually can look quite dynamic.
Yeah, and it's got loads of different biomes, and the game is going to have such a variety of environments. It's going to be quite an eclectic experience. It's kind of like a greatest hits package in a similar way to Sonic Generations. And it feels to me like the open world is as much a hub as it is anything else for experiencing those. Like they've got these kind of digital memories that Sonic has to unlock, and then these stages that are sort of remakes of.
Well, so some of this has come in for stick, right? Because I don't know if you followed it very much, but like, so they've got a stage that is Sky Sanctuary Zone.
Yes, yeah.
Which obviously is from Sonic and Knuckles, but they built the 3D environments for that for Sonic Generations. But then the weird thing that Sega's done is they haven't just given you a slightly rejigged version or even an identical version of the Sky Sanctuary level from Generations. Instead, what they've done is applied the Generations Sky Sanctuary assets to a level layout from Sonic Unleashed or something like that.
Yeah.
So it's sort of like this weird greatest hits that's jumbled up. And I've seen interviews with them where they've said, well, Sonic's struggling to compose his memories or whatever. So therefore things are a mix, a jumble.
Yeah.
I think that's probably an excuse because maybe they wanted to reuse a load of assets and didn't realize they were going to get caught so quickly within 5 seconds as fans went, wait a minute, that's the layout from such and such level. Because I wouldn't have predicted they would have noticed, not straight away anyway.
No.
But I guess if the stages are fun and if they're, the argument I've seen, right, is that that's only a chunk of the game, and it's mostly optional, so who cares?
Yeah, I mean, it's basically like special stages in a sense. And also, like, how many times have they remade the Nuketown map?
Well, that's the comparison that people have given, right? And I get it. But it's sort of like the other comparison people have given is Super Mario Galaxy. I don't know if it's 1 or 2, but one of those 2 games has that wonderful recreation of Womp's Fortress from Mario 64 in it.
Yeah.
And it's just a 1-for-1 recreation of that. And it's like if you were 10 in 1996, 97, going into that was like the most mind-blowing, amazing thing.
Yeah.
However, that was one stage in a game of all original stuff otherwise. And so I get if most of these cyberspace stages are weird mashups of reused assets, and it's sort of like if the only 2D Sonic stages represented are the ones that they'd already made 3D assets for in Generations, I will be slightly disappointed. But I get it also because they've made this big ass open world.
The big open world thing as well, it just gives people a lot of Sonic as well. And if you're the kind of Sonic fan who just loves Sonic in all the various kind of guises, good or bad, this is just a feast, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because I'm an old school Sonic fan, like I said, and I've enjoyed many of the 3D games. For me, the pinnacle of the 3D games is still the 2 Sonic Adventure games. I think there's been a couple of great decent games, not great, decent games since then. But I feel like they were sort of onto something with the way that Sonic Adventure, and to a lesser extent Sonic Adventure 2, reused the same stages and assets across multiple characters to sort of stretch the gameplay out. Because the Sonic problem is he moves so quickly that you have to build a shed load of assets, then no one even looks at them or sees them. It's sort of the problem. It's the same reason it's difficult to make a good Star Fox game.
Yes,
and in my opinion, the best thing Sega could do would be to embrace that and make a deeply replayable Sonic game that's maybe only 4 hours long, which is exactly what the Mega Drive 2D games were.
Yeah.
But I understand that isn't palatable in the current market, and so this seems like the best idea yet for a way to extend that by having this open world and then having the shorter stages dropped around it.
I tell you what, I really liked a lot of the stuff they were doing. So the tutorial we played, that was the other point I was going to make. What we played was essentially a tutorial stage, so it was a bit stop-start.
Yeah.
But they do have to tell you how to play the game for a preview, right? So like it ties back into that whole thing about how difficult this is to demo. But I really liked the side loop attack, and I don't know if that showed up in other Sonic games before now. But you essentially run, you hold the Y button, and you run in like a circle around enemies.
Yeah, and I don't think there's been anything quite like that before.
It's a really interesting mechanic, and I really like it because it's sort of, you're kind of using all the open space then, and it feels like, when you see Sonic doing stuff in movies or the cartoons that he can't really do in the games. Yeah. Stuff like that when he runs in rings around them and stuff. Like, and that's
the interesting thing, right? Because I saw a scene, a shortcut scene when he's powering up that someone posted it to Twitter and noted that this scene of when he's powering up, the cinematography, the camera angle, the camera movement, Sonic's movements are identical to a scene from the film. Yeah, and it's really interesting to be in a situation now where the film franchise is so successful that they're looking at it and going, okay, what can we bring back? And it's probably, I'm trying to think of other times that has happened, even with I guess Sonic's love of chili dogs comes from one of the cartoons.
Yeah.
And for a while they switched to in Mean Bean Machine and stuff, they used a design of Robotnik that was from one of the cartoons. But for the most part, that doesn't really happen. But I think if you've got a good adaptation and you've got a franchise that in its home format has struggled for a while, the best thing to do is look at that adaptation and go, what can we take? And that seems to be what they're doing, which is really exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. And they're catering to a new generation of Sonic fans who are basically kids who are the age of my kids. They absolutely love Sonic. I don't know how Sonic has stayed such a relevant and enduring kind of childhood mascot for so long, but somehow he's managed it. And yeah, it makes perfect sense because those films are to my kids, Sonic 2 is like Empire Strikes Back. It's that important.
They're the best video game movies ever made. I mean,
they really are.
I said that about Sonic 1 when it came out. I just knew it inherently. And, we'll see. I mean, I think the third one is always the hardest one to do well.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think they're making the right calls. The shadow stuff. It's good that they're not lamenting on the 2D stuff too much. And they're like, right, we're going to get to the Sonic Adventure stuff now. It's a great time for this franchise, and I think the challenge is the games have just never been. Sonic Forces is not terrible, and I loved the idea of you create, an interesting answer to people saying, "I want to be Sonic. I don't want to be Sonic's shitty friends." It's for Sega to go, well, now you're going to make Sonic's shitty friends. You're going to be Sonic's shitty friends.
What if you're Sonic's shitty friends? All those people on DeviantArt that fantasize about being one of Sonic's shitty friends, you can now do that in the game.
Yeah, and that was interesting and a cool choice, I think. But I think they've got a lot riding on this in the sense of Sonic is in the rudest position he's been in many years, since the 90s, certainly. And so one really hopes, I mean, the fact that everybody is impressed by it, I think speaks to two things. Yeah. And I think it would be remiss not to note that it speaks to the fact that people's expectations of Sonic are quite low.
That is a factor, yeah.
But I do also think it bodes well that it bodes well in the sense that it just seems like a good game. So yeah, I can't wait. I should have played it at EGX, but I've missed it at so many events now. I am sort of just ready to play the final thing.
Like and subscribe and all that, I mean, if you want, I'm not your mum. And check out the weekly VG 24/7 Best Games Ever podcast if you quite like listening to people mugging off their boss. I should probably stop doing that, actually.